wait for other people to join. You can tell slowly and surely grades are trickling in on Blackboard. Let's see. Almost done finally with the current event analysis. I've emailed a number of you. I don't know if y'all are like working on Macs or whatever, but I couldn't open the versions that were on Blackboard. So you see that email, send it, send me the new version so I can look at it, grade it, and upload it. As you can see thus far, especially with the midterms, your performance is actually on par with what happened last year. There's a clear divide between those who actually read and then those who don't read. And so, like, it's clear as day and night. If you find yourself on the lacking end, especially if you saw your raw grade versus your curved grade, it was like either you made an A or you failed, which I was like, wow, very few people were actually in that middle gray area of B and C. It's like either you were reading and keeping up with the material or you just flat out failed. So, with that in mind, going into the final, y'all read. I know we're home. I know we have the lectures here, but everything like I'm talking about is coming straight from the book, from the books and the assigned readings. And it's really easy to just like check into the class from time to time, and you see we watch ads and we talk about current events and all that stuff. But there is a science and there is canon literature that like I'm referring to and stuff. And if you don't understand those concepts, ask questions, email, follow up so we can explain these things so you can understand them. Otherwise, the final is just going to go the same way as the midterm did. Let's see, was there anything else? No, I guess I can open it up. Does anyone have any questions or anything? If you find yourself, on the lacking end, send an email. We can talk about it. I think, if I recall correctly, they announced that they would allow, like this class and others, you all will have the decision to do, credit, no credit. It's better than having an F. I wouldn't straight out recommend it if you realize you're not going to get, say, an A in the class. Just don't automatically turn around and just say, I'm going to take this class credit or no credit. But if you find yourself on the lacking end of things, for lack of a better word, so that way you just don't ultimately just lose credit on the class or negatively impact your GPA, maybe it would be better for you to take this class credit, no credit. See, I'll stop and see if anyone had any questions or comments or anything, or if anyone else needs to join. I don't think no one else needs to join. Anyways, what say the rest of you? Hello? Huh? Oh. I was like, was I talking to myself? Like, so did y'all all get that? Like, does that make sense? Or
Yeah, it made sense.
okay. Seems like the people that are here are the ones that made A's. So this is I'm preaching to the choir here. All right. Okay, choir. So all right, well, you know what? When they catch this on YouTube, it is what it is. All right. So since I have videos out the yin yang, out of everywhere, I actually was like looking for various videos since we're now in the elections part of the section. This is like actually my favorite part where we're talking about ads and stuff. I came across this video that was talking about actually, the ways that we think about the color coding scheme for the parties, blue being Democrat, red being Republican. Believe it or not, it was not always this way. And so I had found this cute concise video. You can tell your friends about it, but I just wanted to show a real quick clip about it because it shows like how influential the media is in structuring, given that, Republican equals red wasn't always that way. I'm going to finish up these last 3 slides before we get into the rest of our media. Yay, nay? What you think?
I think I associated the colors with the parties. I thought they were with them longer, but I didn't think that they were with them like from their inception, I guess.
like when I saw the clip and they had Clinton, so I think that was 96, and they showed him on the red side. In my brain, I was like struggling because I was like, that's not the right color. But even that shows that even within my own lifetime, this is just a recent phenomenon that really, yeah, it's only been 20 years. It's only 20 years old, so just about as old as y'all, but that's about it. You think just for the one time, perhaps it'd be difficult, they should just change the colors back now? Blue equals Republican and red equals Democrat.
Oh,
There's like, nope, 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 nope. Cassidy's like, nope, nope, nope. We just figured out what was going on. We can't go back. All right, well, let's finish off these last slides. I also have like some interesting other videos to show too. So let's get into news stories because, of course, since we've last met, like now Uncle Joe is the presidential candidate, like the Dem unofficial nominee. Like, are we shooketh? Are we shocked? Or this is what we kind of figured would happen?
it was gonna happen at some point. It just was sooner for me, I guess, because I didn't expect Bernie to get crumbled that easily. But
I guess with the coronavirus out, we're not donating money. I was checking like the number of ads if anything's been aired. TV has been pretty bone dry unless you're like in those niche pockets. And so like I showed those ads last week that are like floating around on the internet, but nothing's really airing on TV. And I've been like trying to catch stuff like at 3 a.m. Really, I'm not trying to catch anything at 3 a.m. I'm just not into bed. It's just weird. But you don't hear hide nor hair really on TV. And I'm really kind of sad because I was looking forward to a Biden Bernie debate. The debate that'll never be now, but oh well. But anyways, getting back into the types of news stories we can hear about candidates. So these narratives ultimately are like broad frames. They're influenced by journalistic, professional, and economic factors that shape campaign news reporting. And so when we hear about candidates being discussed on the news, we really won't hear it more so now for the presidential primary, since essentially it's over now. Like it's done. Only thing that's left to figure out is who will be Joe Biden's running mate. Some people, there are a lot of people that are still saying Stacey Abrams. I had a lot of people in my Black politics class say the same thing today. Word on the street is Kamala is also on the short list. Kamala Harris, she's actually been rallying for Uncle Joe in the last 24 hours, which that's new, considering the vitriol that was spit, that Kamala spat at Joe Biden, back in the September, October, and November debates. So that's new. But these 6 types of narrative types for candidates and certain policy initiatives, they are your candidate schemas, your front runners, losing ground, bandwagon, electability, and then of course exceeding expectations. So for candidate schema, it's basically reporters creating mental frameworks to associate with political elites about what they're talking about. And so candidate schemas are narratives in which the reporters they try to organize these frameworks for the candidates. Once they decide on a schema or for a framework for a candidate, they invoke it in news stories. So examples of this, it's like shortcut framing, not framing, priming in a sense, for George H.W. Bush. So son Bush, towards the end of his presidency, there were questions about ultimately his intelligence. So son Bush is dumb, or not towards, actually, the early part of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign in 2016. So, right after the Benghazi reports and questions about what she did as Secretary of State, let's see, we add Max. The whole question, well, the schema for her was whether or not she was secretive. And then actually not towards, actually through a common recurring theme throughout Obama's presidency was the fact that he was cool. He was the cool president. And so you can like see examples of that. What I'm thinking in particular, the time Obama was on the Jimmy Fallon, like late night with Jimmy Fallon, and he was like sitting and the Roots, they were playing like jazz in the background, and Obama was just like, yeah, it's like that's the cool imagery. When we're talking about the front runner narrative, for these types of stories, attention is given to the leading candidates based on the poll numbers. And so even though now the Dem primary is over, but we can remember when there were times where not Bernie, yeah, Bernie was in the lead for a minute. There were even sketches that were talking about the fact that Bernie was in the lead. There were stories when Elizabeth Warren was popular. We all remember I think it was 2 weeks, Kamala Harris was the flavor of the day. Who else? Julian Castro was never, no one was checking for Julian. But you know what? Pete Buttigieg, he was the front runner for like 3 weeks, it seemed like. Anyways, for these stories, the media is only talking about the top one or two based on poll numbers. And then opposite of the front runner, you have the losing ground narratives. And for these stories, these are just stories, articles in which attention is given to the amount of lost support the person has received. So we saw many of a Joe Biden, he's losing ground. Maybe it's time for Joe Biden to call it quits. We saw a lot of those also for Elizabeth Warren, especially after the New Hampshire primary, and then especially after Super Tuesday. We also saw that the same losing ground ones for Michael Bloomberg too, especially after Super Tuesday. Like, what happened? He didn't win, not nary a primary or a caucus. What's going on? And so that's the losing ground. Oftentimes, you'll see front runner articles or stories and losing ground stories. They go hand in hand. They'll talk about, who's in the lead and who has fallen behind or who should go away. Bandwagoning stories. It's just like the same ones you see for football, for basketball, for any of the sports, especially after the finals or whatever. You just see this sharp increase in attention to candidates when they see an increase in poll rankings or nomination victories. So there's two trends that I see right now on Twitter. One of them is the hashtag vote blue no matter what, where these are people like, well, it's Joe Biden, but we're here now, and you know what? We should encourage people to support the party as a whole, vote blue no matter what. Also, there's like these rumors that are talking about I've heard about the rumors about Joe Biden is kind of a sexual predator and he's kind of sketch. And I think I've showed videos to previous classes about that. But on the other end, apparently Bernie Sanders has people in his staff that is also super sketch. But I think nothing else will ultimately come of it since his campaign is now ended. But anyways, in these bandwagoning articles, and for what I was talking about, vote blue no matter what, that's one trend. And then there was the other one that was, the videos that I've seen on the TikTok with the kids saying, please don't make me vote for Joe Biden. So there's like this, I'm not sure if I would call it a generational thing, but there is a bandwagoning saying vote blue no matter what as a call for the whole party to unite towards defeating Donald Trump. Meanwhile, there's like this anti-bandwagoning, if you will, that it's like, I can't believe you're going to make us vote for Joe Biden. I just won't vote at all. But anyways, that's an example of another bandwagoning. Everybody coming together, or revisionist history saying, I was pro-Obama since day one. And it's like, no, you weren't. But yeah, that's why I say it's similar to the support we see for certain teams, especially after the championship. Like, everybody came out, oh my God, we love the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's like, really? Do you really? You don't love anybody. Anyways, I miss sports. Okay, so the next type of story, electability. These types of stories focus on the candidate's small odds of winning the election. So I haven't even checked to confirm. I don't think John Delaney ever quit. I think John Delaney is still running for president. And if that's the case, that means, there's still one other Democrat in the field, but no one's checking for John Delaney. So even if we did talk about John Delaney in the media did, they would be focusing on his electability. So the fact that no one's checking for him, and why is he still doing this? Not a recent story. This was, I want to say, towards the end of last year. I remember there was a story in Iowa where he hosted like this meet and greet at a local pub, and no one showed up. And of course, the local papers in Iowa, they ran all kinds of stories about it. Like, this man is raising all of this, like spending all of this money, but clearly the public doesn't want him. That kind of story, that's an example of electability. And then finally, for exceeding expectations, these are just stories that focus on the candidate's actual performance versus expected performance. This was an example of this would have been the articles that came out immediately after Tom Steyer's debut as a candidate during the October debates, so the ones that were held here last year. Tom Steyer did better than anticipated, or yeah, actually he did do better than anticipated. Michael Bloomberg's appearance, I think he's only been in what? He was only in one debate, right? Or was he in two debates? I can't remember. Coronavirus is affecting my memory, y'all. Yeah, this coronavirus quarantine. I want to say he was only in one. Maybe. Yeah, we'll say he was in one. Anyways, all the articles that were talking about Bloomberg was focusing on how he actually did versus what the media expected for him to do. You gonna move? Okay. So, of course, back to priming, setting, agenda setting, priming, and framing. Of course, recall that agenda setting is just the way in which the agenda of the public is given differential attention to certain issues. So, I think what is on the public's agenda right now, well, for mine, is stimulus checks. I want my check. Coronavirus still. I don't know. Are we trying to go to war? I don't know if we're trying to go to war with China or we're just dragging China through the mud. So, like, I know there was yesterday a public condemnation by the White House of the World Health Organization that we've agreed that we're just pulling support from that. So, I think that's on the agenda. Is there anything else on the agenda? Not gonna lie, I really have not been focusing much on the news because all that coronavirus death stuff gets depressing after a while. And so. But I did learn, not tomorrow, but on Tuesday, I will get my Final Fantasy VII game in the mail. Anyways, the media, of course, as we've learned throughout the semester, the media tries to determine what is on the public's agenda. Then, of course, priming and framing and all of those great things. Let's see, priming and framing and all of those great things. Yes, we know what priming and framing are and the ways in which the media affects public opinion by causing individuals to think. Well, the media tries to influence what the public thinks is important, not only what they think it's important, how it's important, and why it's important. So that's the three ways. What is important? Why is it important? And how is it important? And so, of course, the various ways in which the agenda is actually conditioned, the conditioning factors in question. So the factors are weight, going from left to right. Effects are concentrated among the less involved, the less informed. So people who are not politically engaged, not politically sophisticated, if their education levels are low or ultimately their interest levels are low, these conditioning factors, the effects are far more stronger amongst that branch of the public than it is amongst the lower stratums or even the higher stratums. It's the middle crowd that these conditioning factors work for. The second one, the interaction between news coverage with personal sensitivity to the issues, is the modulator model. If this is an issue that matters deeply to you, you're far more likely to be responsive to it. So there are pockets out there of individuals who are like, you know what? All this coronavirus stuff really doesn't affect me. I was already a shut-in. Like, I'd never left my house anyways. This is nothing new. Like, I still see memes on on Facebook and Instagram that are talking about like the differences between introverts and extroverts. Extroverts are really going through it. Meanwhile, introverts are like, I've already been inside. Or the other ones that are talking about, the ones that I see, because I'm like in that weird branch where either all of my colleagues are married and have kids or we're not. And it's like showing the differences between people with kids versus those without. And like, of course, the ones with kids are really struggling because this is the most time that they've spent with their family, since they gave birth to them. And those that don't have kids, it's like, it's another day. Who cares? Anyways, that's the correlation I'm talking about between the your stake in the issue versus in response to whatever the media is talking about. The third factor, effects are limited to plausible national problems, and ultimately all this is referring to is that the media is really truly unable to quote unquote manufacture issues. So ultimately, yeah, we're talking about the coronavirus. This is not, I don't even have my tinfoil hat. It's in the other room. Actually, it's not there anymore. I used that piece of foil to cover up chicken wings I tried to make. Look, y'all, like I'm still trying to figure out if I'm gonna go to Sam's Club today because like I really, 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 really need my things that I normally like. We're out of paper bowls, and you're like, oh, that's a first world problem. But I don't like to wash dishes, and so what am I supposed to eat out of? Like the actual dishes I have and wash them? I need paper bowls. Anyways, I
You
say
just
all
saran
that
wrap
to
on top of the dish.
huh?
You just put saran wrap over the top of the dish. And
Put
put the
saran wrap on
away.
the top of the dish and
Yeah.
eat off the We're not supposed to eat the saran wrap. What if there's like
No.
chemicals in it?
Like if there's a bowl, you just saran wrap the inside of the bowl, throw the food in it, and then you can just pick the saran wrap up like a little trash bag and throw it away when you're done.
What if I told you I don't have saran wrap?
Oh, so you're
Like
very
I don't have your basic first world supplies that are contributing to deforestation
not using dishes.
and pollution, all that. Yeah. So, but anyways, I say all that to say, some people are like, oh, the coronavirus isn't real. What other conspiracies are there? This is only a distraction to hide
The
from,
government distraction.
yeah, a distraction from 5G radiation. So I had been reading a lot about that.
So have
Uh,
I. Yeah, it's interesting.
I've also read one to say that Bill Gates is actually like the mastermind behind all of this as a way to get us to be microchipped and mark of the beast. That Bill Gates is actually the Antichrist, which just trips me out. But I
I'm,
mentioned all of these plausible theories. Oh, and there's another one that says all of these deaths aren't real. Like these people never existed. And so it's just hoopla. But of course, I mentioned them to say that, yeah, the media cannot create issues. All the media does is highlight things that ultimately either the media will say this is a really, really important issue or it's not an important issue. But the media, there's no deep state, allegedly. There is no deep state that is creating these issues out of thin air just to get us all riled up. The issues already existed. They're just bringing attention to it. And then, of course, finally, the prominence of the media cues strengthen effects. Like, so how long have we been in quarantine now? Like 6 years? Actually, no, it's been like what, 6 weeks? No?
it's like we went in like the week we were supposed to be back from spring break in Ohio, so it's been like 2-3 weeks.
It's
I
only
think.
been 3 weeks?
I
It feels,
think. Let me look at the calendar real quick.
it feels like it's been 6 years, y'all. But it's been so long that, outside of the blurb yesterday that, Bernie Sanders quit, Tulsi Gabbard quit, all the main news has just been about the coronavirus. Is there
Can you
anything else
repeat
going
the
on?
last box again? I can only see half of it
You can only see half of the box? Oh no.
because of people.
So the way that
You
you
can
can
change your view mode.
yeah, you can change on your video thingy and minimize it.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
No, no problem. Look, I just figured out how to do this last week. So, yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't
we're
heard.
on week 4. It's like second week of spring break was like 3 weeks ago. So
Was
yeah,
it?
this is like because our spring break was like the 8th through the 14th, right?
Yeah.
And then we had the extra week. So yeah, we're on week 4, week 5 if you include the spring break.
It feels like 6 years.
I mean, I'm still going out. I'm still going out sometimes, except mine's to be like I go out and fish. I've been fishing a lot by myself. So at least I'm not in my house.
Can you tell me what outside is like?
It's actually warm now, so it's
It's
worth going
warm.
outside.
Do you still see birds?
We got struck
Yeah.
by a tornado 2 days ago.
Oh, so y'all had a tornado, Max? I mean, it's
like 2
stormed.
miles from my house.
Oh wow. I know it stormed really bad last night. Like I actually saw our recycle bin like leave our backyard and go across the street and I was like, "Well, we just don't recycle anymore." I mean, I got it back right before class, but Last night it was like, well, we just don't recycle anymore.
No,
And
it was Monday night. Yeah.
it was,
Monday night, we had a tornado come through.
oh wow.
I know last night there was tornado warnings all over Ohio. They just went in our immediate area.
One
It
of
snowed
my
today at my house.
Yeah.
one of my friends, I think it was last night or the night before, their house got struck by lightning and caught on fire. So
Wow.
it was just like a little bit.
That's wild.
It was just a little bit.
I
Just
mean,
a
I've never had my
little
house struck, but I've had my pond struck by lightning 3 times now. Killed all my fish all 3 times.
Like, and it killed your fish?
Yeah, it killed all the fish in the pond.
Oh, in the pond. I thought you said in your
Yeah.
car, and I was like, why
No,
is
in
there
my
fish in your
pond.
car? Oh.
The pond.
I've had lightning strike my car once since I've been up here and like ruined the electrical system. Like I still don't like have a working radio to this day. I got everything else fixed, but like no, I don't have a working radio now.
My friend also works at, well, another one also works at McDonald's, and apparently the McDonald's she works at got struck by lightning 3 times. So it like fried all the computers, but she still had to like work a full day.
But I guess what is it? The McFlurry. Of course the McFlurry machine was down. It's perpetually down. Trying to see was there any other. So do you see birds, Zach? Are there birds out there?
Yeah, I have songbirds still at my house.
You have songbirds. Okay, so of course that means the theory that this quarantine was so that we don't see the government change the batteries in the birds. We know
Oh
that's
no, I have a robin. He attacks my window every morning.
So
He sees
those
the
are just
reflection in it.
like y'all.
Question though, where do birds go in like bad storms?
See, once again, perhaps this gives more credence to the birds aren't real. Where do
Well,
they
I've,
go?
I've had well, my back porch has holes in the screens, and I've had birds fly in my porch for shelter before. That was interesting.
Like, where do the rest of nature birds go? So let's
typically
see.
into like barns and stuff.
Into barns?
I
I
know
mean, but
deer
like, what
just
if
like
you're
hunker
in
down
an
in the
area that
woods.
doesn't
Like
have
they just lay
barns?
down.
I guess you can go underwater. Well, no, not underwater. I mean underground, not underwater. Yeah, it's been one of those days, y'all. So let's see.
How are they going to get underground?
Well, like in holes. All right, we'll
Birds
just
don't
move
do
forward
that.
into birds can't like burrow, not burrow. Of course, birds can't burrow, but like there are birds like quails and stuff like that really don't fly. Like they have nests.
They nest on the ground. Like they just live in bushes and stuff. They don't go underground.
There aren't any birds that like just nestle just a little bit.
There's
All
like
right.
one bird. There's like an owl that burrows. That's the only bird I know that lives underground. It's like a small owl, and they
See
burrow
there, see
underground.
so there are fowl. There are fowl that that can burrow.
Yeah.
So let's see. Actually, I've shown all of these slides before. How does priming work? How does framing work? We talked about oh yes, framing versus persuasion. Who's bringing the message? What is the information? Who's the receiver? Of course, the differences between framing and persuasion. Persuasion, in particular, talks about attitude change as a result of exposure to phenomenon. Persuasion is usually discussed in the context of change in response to exposure to information. Major determinants of attitude change, of course, are the source, the message, and receiver. So people will be far more responsive to a message if they identify the source to be credible or they consider the source to be a respectable person. So whether it's a political elite versus a local news anchor versus a reputable journalist versus a celebrity. So I think my example of this was during Kim Kardashian's short-lived mass incarceration spiel. I don't know if she's still on that kick, but like I remember, was this last year or year before last, where it was reported that she went to the White House and talked to Donald Trump about releasing, I think it was Centoya Brown, and I think another Black woman that was in jail. And I remember like the visceral reaction I had as to how did she become like the face of mass incarceration and trying to dismantle the prison industrial complex. And there were also other scholars that were talking about whether or not Kim Kardashian would be considered a credible source. Would she be reputable would she cause damage to our larger understanding of trying to dismantle all of this? And then, of course, what is the information? Are we talking about tax reform? Are we talking about the opioid crisis? Are we talking about the recession? Word on the street is what unemployment is 10% now. And I was just like, wow, that's wild. Also, tone matters too. And then, of course, who is the audience? Are we talking about young people, old people, Black people, white people? Are we talking about people in the South, in the Midwest? Is this for a global audience? These things also matter. And so I'm trying to see, do I have a video yet? No, the video's not yet, but I got videos for days, all day videos. So more, actually, I ended up talking about source credibility and believability here as opposed to, I talked about it on the previous slide, but this is the slide that I should have been talking about it on. Whoops. Anyways, so for source credibility, all source credibility is just the ways in which the messenger's characteristics affect we, the audience, responsiveness of a message. And so source credibility, in terms of being studied in political science, political communications, it's really new. I know myself and two other scholars that just got their PhDs. Like we're like the only ones that are really talking about it, especially as it relates to race. There's another colleague, he's at one of those small private Christian schools. I think it's not Liberty, but it's a sister school of Liberty. Because I know if he was at Liberty, I would have said something by now to y'all, because he would have told me like cracking jokes about what would have been like to be at Liberty right now. Anyways, he looks at the ways in which source credibility influences responsive rates to notifications about deception. So like, how do partisans react when they learn that their desired political elite, their partisan elite, was caught lying? How do they feel about that? What are their understandings of that issue in question that they lied about, etc.? And then I look at it as it relates to Black political behavior, but that's just us. Source credibility is ultimately important in politics, especially for uninformed voters. Uninformed voters, they far more likely rely on these cues and heuristics. They rely on shortcuts as much as possible. And so for them, knowing exactly who the person is, if they already are in political office, are they considered important, respected by the party, respected by the media, etc.? These are shortcuts that uninformed voters use to quickly determine whether or not this is a candidate I should vote for, or if this is a policy, depending upon who is endorsing said policy, if this is an initiative I should support. And then ultimately, believability refers to the extent to which the receiver accepts the message. Do you buy what they're saying? So like as more and more, even like BuzzFeed and them are talking about, don't worry, the coronavirus is not a distraction for 5G radiation. More and more people are talking about it. I even have scholars, like scholar colleagues that are talking about, should I look into this 5G radiation? More and more people are talking about this conspiracy is not real. The more and more people are talking about it, should I be aware of this? What is 5G radiation exactly? If they're saying that this coronavirus is not this, if more people say it enough times, maybe it is. But you know, that's backwards thinking. And so then lastly, a source can be credible, but their message be unbelievable. However, you cannot have a believable message from a non-credible source. So you can recognize a person as being credible, but acknowledge that whatever they're trying to sell you right now is unbelievable. Like, I respect you, Obama, but what you're telling us to do right now is nope, not good. Or even better, I respect you, Bill Gates. You created Microsoft, you created Windows, great. I'm running it right now. But to say that we have to stay in our homes until we can all get this new vaccine you're trying to sell us, as well as like this with this digital fingerprint, I can't. Nope. That's unbelievable. However, you cannot have a believable message from a non-credible source. So I'm trying to think of an example of who do I consider to be not credible? Not because there are actually very few public figures that I'll say that are not credible. Well, you know what? I'll say Kim Kardashian. she's credible in her own spheres, but I don't consider her credible in like politics or anything related to politics. But like if she came out and said, "Yeah, you know, I have the cure to the coronavirus," I think what did they say it was? It was like if you take silver, it was something related to silver I saw online. Don't do that if you do.
Oh, you're talking about colloidal silver?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll turn you blue depending. It can turn you like violet. Take enough of it.
But it won't kill you. Okay.
Yeah, not that I know of.
There was one thingy that said like if you drink apple cider vinegar and then like did a lot of inhales and exhales, like that's the way like you can self-diagnose if you had the coronavirus. That's not true either. So like if Kim Kardashian was saying that and it turned out to be the truth, I wouldn't believe it because it's Kim Kardashian. So let's see. Oh, and then that's the end of our slides. Huzzah. So now we're done with public opinion. Let me get us into where we're supposed to be, media and politics. Where's that second one at? All right. All right, let's get into it. We all see these slides, right?
Yep.
All right. So let us talk about the historical role of media in political campaigns. I want to make sure everybody can see that while I then change up my lecture notes as well. Cool. All right. So campaigning, as we see today, has always been a display of, well, not always. Back in the day, the way that it worked was the candidate themselves never advertised themselves. They never campaigned for themselves. The way that it worked back in the day was that you had your supporters campaign on your behalf. Like they would go out to potential supporters and say, "Hey, did you know Dr. Mack is running for president?" No. And then of course they would try to recruit others on your behalf. And so also with that, the way that candidates also tried to sell themselves were that they battled it out in the newspapers. Let's see, it really didn't change per se until, not change per se, it didn't get personal until the 1828 presidential election, and the newspaper editors bought out the insults. Let's see. The 1824 election was critical because that was the first time candidates interacted with the general public. Because, of course, that was when the public could finally vote for the president. It was also the first time we saw the entire protocol of the electoral process happen. So, like, if you don't know the entire protocol, it just doesn't end after the general vote. Well, yeah, the public vote on election day. If there is an instance where neither candidate secures 270 electoral college votes, it then goes to Congress, and then there's a lot of happens. And then, of course, if it doesn't survive that process, then, it's not martial law, but the four founders did not really think about what could happen if the public could not decide, and then ultimately the electoral college could not decide. So what ultimately happens is in the House, each state, not each state, I take that back. Is it each state? No. Yes, it is. Each state in the House. So all the House representatives per state have to get together, and then each state picks the president, like who they want for president. And whichever candidate secures majority of the states, so of course at this time now 26 votes, that person becomes president. However, that becomes extremely difficult considering our larger states, California, Florida, Texas, that has more than say 2 or 3 House representatives. You want all these individuals to agree on a candidate. We'll be here till, the Lord comes back. So it doesn't work. But we saw that happen in 1824. It made it only to that part. If it doesn't survive the House, if the House is unable to pick a president, then it goes to the Senate. Then in the Senate, each senator has their own individual vote, and they don't pick the president, they pick the vice presidential candidate. And so when that happens, they pick on the vice presidential candidate. Whichever VP wins, that VP will serve as president until the House gets it together. And so that's the process. And that's why in 2000, George Bush, son Bush, bypassed all of that and went straight to the Supreme Court to determine which recount for Florida was the most recent. Because had he not done that, it would have had to go to the House and go down the official protocol. And of course, I don't think we even at this point would have ever figured out who actually became president or who actually won the election. Anyways, so that's the process. But back to what happened in 1824. Ultimately, for that, Jackson had won 99 electoral college votes, while Adams won 84. There was a third candidate, actually two more candidates. William H. Crawford had 41 electoral college votes, and Henry Clay had 37. As a result, the House had to vote, and ultimately John Quincy Adams won. Jackson's campaign was important because this is the first time we see himself portrayed as a war hero. He also was running on platform promises to remove Northeastern business interests from the government, and he really portrayed himself to be a person of common interest. Pro-Jackson editors, newspaper editors, said that Adams was a anti-Dutch. He referred to John Quincy Adams referred to the Dutch as stupid. Pro-Adams editors said that General Jackson's mother was a common prostitute. Yes, we were bringing out slurs and talking about people's mothers back in the 1800s, y'all. And then ultimately, more citizens followed politics more actively back then. And as a result, in 1828, Jackson won the election. So they felt that John Quincy Adams, he won because he was the more traditional candidate, but in 1828, it led to Jackson being elected. So let's see. We saw also, as a result, popular slogan-filled campaigns becoming the new normal, parties organizing large rallies and marches, and these were called torchlight campaigns. And then by the 1890s, campaigning finally adopts a business model approach. Will this be a question on the final exam? Maybe. It could be extra credit, actually. Mark Hanna changed the game, upgraded President William McKinley. Mark Hanna is considered the first campaign manager, the first political consultant. He raised an equivalent of, let's see, he raised $7 million back then for William McKinley's reelection bid. In today's money, that would have been over $200 million. So he did that back in the 1890s. And so that's why I said he changed the game. He's considered the first campaign manager, the first real campaign consultant. So what happened since then? We fast forward now, we're getting closer to modern day. Teddy Roosevelt, he modernized the White House and the presidency by doing three things. What three things did he do? So let's see, where did I put him? I cannot find him anymore. All right, so he did so by expanding the White House press rooms. He replaced telegraphs with telephones, so no more that no more Morse code stuff. We got telephones. And then he provided reporters White House access, so long as they didn't reveal their sources. So gave them access to the White House. So the three things: he expanded the White House press rooms, he replaced telegraphs with telephones, and then he provided reporters with White House access, so long as they didn't mention the sources. Then FDR, that's his cousin, if I recall correctly. FDR continued the trend by expanding the press conferences, engaging in news management techniques, and addressing the nation via fireside chats, where he promised, what was it? I can't even remember. I just remember the chicken in every pot. I can't remember the other part. Oh, my AP US history teacher would be so upset that I can't remember what did FDR promise in those fireside chats. Anyways, moving onward, now we're in the 60s, right? Okay, so John F. Kennedy was the first presidential candidate to utilize TV imagery as a strategy by harnessing his physical attractiveness and visual skills. So while John F. Kennedy was the first candidate to utilize it, in fact, we'll have clips from attack ads as well as the progression of televised presidential debates. The first president to use ads for their reelection bid was President Dwight Eisenhower. I don't know if it'll be today or Tuesday, but the first presidential TV ad was produced by not Walt Disney, but Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother. That's right. The first presidential ad was a Disney production. It's a cute ad. When I show it to you, you'll like it. You'll be like, ah, this was great for Disney. Anyways, moving onward, now we're in the 80s. Reagan, that is not how you spell Reagan. Ugh. Anyways, Reagan mastered the art of image making by leveraging his image as an actor while running for and operating as president. Reagan understood the grammar and syntax of TV. In his TV addresses, he spoke to Americans as if he was a close friend. He told heroic stories about ordinary Americans, as seen as in his iconic "Morning in America" ad, which led to him receiving the moniker as the Great Communicator. Let's see if I have a moment. I can actually pull up that ad and show it. So let us see. So give me a second, good people. I will pull it up so we can actually watch that ad. Because I used to have it. I don't know why it's not up right now. Morning in America ad. Is this the right one? Da, 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 da. All right. All right. Let's see. Wait, pause. It's also weird the way that you have to like click and move things around. You'd think it'd be nice if it just has a button. All right, we all see it? Cool.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years. This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
Now don't you feel warm and fuzzy? Cassidy is like,
Yeah.
that wasn't bad at all. Like, wouldn't you like to say, to hear them say that right now? It's morning again in America, and we can leave our houses. I just feel like before the end of the ad, I will be already outside. We can leave. I will be outside playing on my Switch somewhere.
Did you see some of the news projections say might be stuck in until August?
Don't say
Bullshit.
that. Like
Apparently there's supposed to be a resurgence in the fall.
No, don't say that. Like, I already got notification. So like here in Columbus, like the summertime is like the whole reason why I decided to stay in Columbus. They already announced that they've canceled the arts festival, which I'm really sad about. So I guess it goes without saying they're going to cancel the Asian festival. If they cancel the Jazz and Rib festival, I'm like, well, that's my summer. Like, that sucks.
Yep.
Don't say that. I don't want to be here the entire.
And it's nuts. I don't know if you know where like Fairmont, Ohio is, Fremont. It's like up north near the lake. They have a big walleye run up there every year, and the mayor put out a state of emergency, and any sportsmen that show up are going to get arrested on trespass.
On site.
Yep.
So no fishing. Oh wow. No walleye. Oh wow.
Bro, I got an internship this summer. I hope it doesn't get canceled.
Is it in DC? Or where is your internship?
It's at the zoo because I'm a zoology major.
Well, they need people
At the Cleveland Zoo?
Columbus.
I don't believe Jack Hanna would shut it down. You need people to help feed the animals and take them around for those cute videos.
And my brother, he goes to Miami, Miami University here in Oxford, and they're already talking about doing a remote fall semester. Like it's already on the table. They're debating it.
Miami's been struggling though. There's something in the paper about them like talking about how like they don't have a lot of money, and like some of their teachers that have yearly just like 1 year contracts, like they might have to cut them off, and I don't know. Miami's
not the only one. Ohio University is also struggling really badly.
You don't get
So,
that vibe if you've ever been to Miami. All the people driving like supercars around and super expensive
Exactly.
Mercedes.
well, I mean, I thought Miami University was like the party school. Like that was the party
There's a
private
bunch of
school.
rich kids that go there. Found that
So,
out.
so like I didn't know they were struggling like that. I thought that's where you go to
Yeah,
party.
that's what I thought too. I didn't know that they're having issues.
And these 1 year contracts. But that's actually common for academia. Like I can go on and tell you about the struggles of we poor professor folk. But that's for a different day. Let's keep talking about the role of media now in the 21st century. So Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton actually mastered incorporating research and real-time changes into campaigns. If you end up taking voters and elections with me, we'll talk about the Clinton style campaign and the way that he ran his campaign, and then ultimately how his wife ran her two campaigns, but still from this model, relied a lot on researchers, pollsters, people like myself to run focus groups and find out what were the key phrases and slogans, because their whole tactic was to convince the undecided voter to support them. Their goal was to reach out, mobilize the undecided voter. Meanwhile, the Bush model started with Daddy Bush and then son Bush continued it, was to focus on mobilizing the partisan, the tried and true old person, the person that always had supported the party. If you mobilize and support your primary supporters, you don't need to worry about the undecided voters. Ultimately, if you did want to get them, you would secure them through bandwagoning. So mobilize your tried and true. That's how you get in the office. That's what Daddy Bush did, and that's what Son Bush did. And then also during Son Bush's administration, he learned how to control the amount of, as well as the type of information about our military presence. In particular, he engaged in a host of strategies from leaking stories to doing public pronouncements, as well as spinning the reasons for why we invaded Iraq. Remember the weapons of mass destruction. That was a Bush product. Then during the Obama administration, he used the same techniques in his campaigns and throughout his administration. Also, the Obama administration is the first one that we see utilizing internet advances in technology, like the fact that the president had a Twitter, like immediately after Twitter was created. That was revolutionary. And then now, President Trump is actually the first, while Obama was the first one to have a social media presence, President Trump is the first president to actually master it and utilize it as his personal microphone, as his personal platform, as his personal podium. And he does so to circumvent also traditional party structure as well as traditional media structure. Like we see him far more active and engaging on social media than we see in the actual press conferences. Like part of me wonders if he feels better actually hiding behind the keyboard as opposed to being on the stage. So let's see. So just to summarize, if you can't see, I suggest just minimizing the video, what's it called it? The video window. See if I can move mine too. So that way the students that watch this later, they can catch a little piece of it. I'll just put it down here for the students for later. Okay, so going from 1996 through the present day, in 1996, we see presidential candidates starting to create websites. So if you want to go on, it's not LexisNexis, just Google like the web archive. You can look up early examples so you can see Bill Clinton's website. You can see, I can't remember who ran in 1996 besides Clinton. It wasn't Nader, was it Perot? I can't remember who was the Republican candidate in 96 because I was a child. Who cares? But yeah, you can go and start seeing those early websites and see what they look like. Whoa, they look a hot mess. And then in 2000, we start seeing campaign websites become more common. By 2004, Howard Dean actually is the first presidential candidate to blog. And then we also see the internet being used as a way to raise a lot of money from small contributors, many small contributors. By 06, we see YouTube becoming powerful, as well as it sunk the candidacy of one man running for the Virginia Senate, George Allen. He was mad sketch. It was really questionable what he did in that because he said the N word. I've tried to find the video time and time again. I had it and then they delete it. YouTube also like now is like really strict. They delete stuff really quickly. Uh, Anyways, by the time we move to '08, Obama's raising record amounts of small online donations. We see him create a campaign social network. He posts numerous YouTube videos and uses social media to link campaigns to volunteers. By 2012, we see social media being now a regular part of campaigns, and a lot of candidates' teams, you see they have a social media consultant or a social media manager. And then by 2016, Twitter becomes all important. Social media tech advances now include live streaming videos, live videos from phones, angry partisan posts, and then millions of online donations characterizing a campaign. I think now the Democratic Party, I don't know what it is for the Republican Party, but for the Democratic Party, they now have like a universal platform. It's not a universal platform. I don't want to call them a bank or like I guess a fund collector, Act Blue. So I don't know if it's Act Red for the Republicans, but for Democrats, they now have decided to consolidate all of their sources into one for their fundraising. So like if you wanted to donate money to, I know Bernie Sanders is not running for reelection. So not only if you wanted to donate to Joe Biden or to AOC's campaign, who else? Ilhan Omar, etc. All of these other people that are running for a House as well as president, etc. You donate via Act Blue, and then the money is distributed accordingly to the candidates. That's how that works. And so let's see, campaigning on the Twitter. So the interesting aspect about campaigning on the Twitter is, as you learn from your Twitter threads, do your Twitter threads, y'all. Do your Twitter threads. The limit forces long-winded politicians to get to the point. I think when I started on the Twitter or tried to play around, it was what, like 150 characters? Now it's a lot more. It's like 250. You can write like 3 sentences. It's crazy. But anyways, it's still very short and it forces candidates to get to the point. Twitter allows candidates to circumvent the press and then ultimately build a following with tweets. It provides a platform for candidates to do 3 things. And these 3 things are as follows: mobilize like minded voters, gain brand value via supportive comments from public opinion leaders, and then capture voluminous media coverage. So, once again, mobilize like minded voters, gain brand value via comments from online public opinion leaders, and then capture voluminous media coverage. So it matters a lot if you're a up and coming candidate running for the Augusta City Council and someone like Teray or Rachel Maddow or some other person retweets you. That matters. When AOC was first running for the House, and it was determined like she could actually pose a chance. I can't even remember the name of the incumbent that she ultimately took down. But when she started gaining traction, it was actually getting coverage from MSNBC and from other people online, especially on Twitter. It actually increased her exposure. So it matters. Twitter also provides opportunities for direct messaging between candidates and followers, and it also adds an immediacy lacking in conventional news. And then finally, it does create carries the risk of creating controversies and generating bad press. So we can talk about time and time again the Covington High School situation and why are they cutting the grass and it's going to rain like in 10 minutes. Anyways, that's happening. But I'm trying to think of what is the current political controversy. Actually, we can just find that out right now. What are the top political tweets for right now? Let us see. Will you open for me, please? Thank you. No, I have to change the share. I know. Let's see. What are our current tweets? Let's see. We can all see this. Our current big tweets. Because, yeah, I logged out. Our top ones are the Federal Reserve is announcing another $2.3 million in loans to small and medium businesses. MGM is told to hand over Trump's apprentice tapes and scam lawsuit. Something about Tweet the Press. The Department of Defense getting ready to hand out those supply of masks. We see increasing. All right, I don't know why are we showing. What is that? Maya Rudolph. That's a thing. Okay. Apparently Melania Trump released something as FLOTUS to tell us to stay in the house. That's nice. Nate Silver is tweeting. Yeah. So if you ever want to know, you can just go to your Twitter, pull up the top tweets of the day, and you can easily get a streamline of what's popping on Twitter as it relates to politics. So let me put it back to the regular share. Back to the lecture. Let's see. Are we back up? Everything is so slow. All right. So, marketing. Actually, did we show enough ads today? No, we did not. So, we still have to get into all of these other thingies. Marketing. So, when you're thinking, do we have any business people here? If not, you should probably take a class in the business department, or at least when they offer marketing, it's kind of cool. So the way that marketing, huh? What? Man?
I am.
Have you taken the marketing course yet?
I'm a marketing major.
You're a marketing major, so that means.
I'm a marketing.
So that means like you can just tell us how marketing works, or would you rather me go on and explain political marketing? Colors.
It's awful because it's just colors combined with message, combined with attitude, combined with the personal face of it, along with search engine optimization and being able to track what people view so that you can advertise and market more similar products and services and information based on what they want. It's what's called the bubble effect, is you determine what you see. And it sucks because it's really hard to get out of.
And that's political marketing in a gist. Yeah, the marketing and then political marketing. You sprinkle in a lot of selective exposure, and then that's how we all essentially get on our various hamster wheels and are only exposed and consuming information in a never-ending cycle. Because they're like, well, if you like this, well, surely you like this. And if you like that, then, oh, I know you'll like this. And you'll like this. And you'll like this. And then you rarely are exposed to anything new and actually contrary. But related to all this, of course, branding for politics, process of creating a distinctive product image and identity, as Max said, added values in consumers' minds. The best political communicators have a clear and energizing brand identity. So when you think about the ones that really did not work out, the Democratic candidates that really didn't work out, people can argue that there was probably not a clear, energizing brand identity. I'm thinking especially Julian Castro, but Pete Buttigieg, his stuff was clear and concise. At least his communications were online. Like if you ever look at his website, it was sleek. It was the colors. They were cohesive. It was all right. And then of course we've talked about credibility. Of course, it's the receiver's perceptions of the communicator's qualities. Core values like expertise and trustworthiness. Ultimately, confident speakers exert a stronger persuasive impact even when they're objectively incorrect. So like one of the biggest, not complaints, but critiques that I've heard about Tom Steyer wasn't that his message wasn't bad. It was just that he didn't seem forward, not really aggressive, but instead assertive. He really didn't seem confident about what he was talking about. So I don't know whether or not it was ultimately just him. Would have been better received if it came from a Joe Biden or anyone else. But if he decides to run again or try to stay involved in politics, work on his confidence and it actually will work. Let's see. So more about digital marketing. So digital marketing has actually transformed political marketing by focusing on micro-targeting. And all micro-targeting is, it's just referring to candidates targeting really niche audiences, tailoring the appeal to match a targeted group or a particular individual's characteristics and online preferences. And so notable effects include removed barriers to communication among leaders, media, and citizens, afforded candidates more opportunities to market their message. It transforms formats to include text, tweets, and video streaming, reduced dominance of traditional news media, and also enabled the tweet, making it a centerpiece of online campaigns. And so, like, if you want to know what micro targeting looks like, in particular for Facebook, let's see if I can change the share again. So yeah, we'll go here. So like if you ever get bored, go to the ad library on Facebook, and it actually captures everything, all the ads and stuff that Facebook airs. And of course, they're not aired to everybody. They're only aired to certain niche people. And so like unfortunately right now, you don't see too many. You don't see too many interesting ads. So like when I was looking for ads to show my students that are currently running in Black politics, you don't see too many. So like we see like this weird thing, Black to the Future. It's like, what the hell is that? Talking about a Black agenda. But like if I scroll long enough, what happens is you see, well, apparently Julian Castro's out here trying to do stuff for coronavirus. But the reason why I noted Black to the Future is if we scroll down further, it's Push Black as well as not Push Black. Where it is, it what are they called? Soul to Sisters. All of these entities, yes, Black Future Labs. So all of these instances, these are actually all owned by the same company. So what is it? The Black to the Future, Black Futures Lab. Not Color of Change, but the one I mentioned about the sisters, they're actually owned by one of those quote unquote dark money groups. Bum bum bum. So, but anyways, the ad library is actually pretty cool because it shows you instances. You can type in whatever word you want. If you type it, there's an ad about it. If you want to look at political ads, you probably have to filter it out or focus specifically on videos related to certain issues. If you type in coronavirus, you won't see the conspiracy ads. However, you can, and they will. Facebook will also show ads that they pulled, ads that they later deem to be inflammatory or go against their guidelines. But Facebook's ad library, Twitter doesn't have a collection yet. I think eventually Instagram would too, but since Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same person, if you want to see the ad that's floating around on Instagram, you probably have to check the Facebook ad library. As we get into the summer, and particularly as we get into the early fall, you'll see the ad library really jump up with more, like there are weird ads out there, especially as we see for state offices, state and local offices. Like it's great stuff. The Back in 2018, I think the woman's name was Louise Valentine. She was running for the Ohio State legislator, and the Republican branch for this Ohio State legislator came out with this really weird ad that only showed up on Facebook, but it likened Louise Valentine to being a communist supporter along with Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi. And it was just like wild stuff. But that is also an example of micro targeting because it did not air. Actually, yeah, no, it did air on my Facebook because Facebook, for some reason, has me listed as a conservative. It's because I don't post stuff on Facebook. But based on the ways in which Facebook categorizes your engagement, your political leaning, based on what you post or choose not to post, it ultimately decides what kind of ads it'll show you. So like if you end up liking a friend's post about being pregnant, or one of your friends finally gets married, you like that, all the ads that you'll see for the next 6 months will be related to babies or related to rings, marriage, anything of that sort. So if you end up liking someone's status about Republicans, you can expect to see Republican ads. Democratic ads the same way. If they perceive you to be a moderate, you actually won't get that many ads. So it all varies. And so let's see, we'll pause here. So long as I don't lose my voice again, Tuesday we'll finish this up. For your classmates that missed out, well, the version that they'll get on YouTube will not have ads, so it'll be kind of glitchy. So it is what it is. But on Tuesday, let's see what we'll be doing on Tuesday. We'll be watching the Willie Horton attack ad. We'll be watching 60 years of presidential attack ads. More on, yeah, and I got ads out the yin yang, all the ads. So, rest of the grades should be up. If you got an email, as I said at the beginning of class, please send me the new copy. For some reason, Blackboard is not allowing me to open certain versions of your current event analysis. If you find yourself on the lacking end of the grades, because the way that you saw, especially for the midterm, either you made an A or you failed. And odds are the reason why you failed is because you weren't doing the readings. Read. The midterm is going to be just like the final, and it's going to be online. I could tell a lot of people were just looking because the ways in which, I think the question was the 3 ways in which the 3 types of biases that we see in the media, and everyone was like talking about oppositional bias and all that. That was like the big giveaway that you weren't reading, or much less even try to replay last lectures. So read. If you don't understand something, send an email. Stay on top of your tweets. Find yourself hat in hand, email me. Maybe we can work something out. Or in particular, just take the class credit, no credit. This is like a one-time opportunity OWU will give you to allow you to get credit for a course, even though you're not gonna, you're not gonna get that C. So that's all I got. Does anyone have any questions or anything?
Not really.
Well, if you do, you know how to contact me. Enjoy your weekend and don't get the
But-
coronavirus.